is the After Party. Your hosts are the Great Order and No White Guilt. The Honors Roll Call highlights and celebrates those who have conscientiously committed to monthly gifts in my work for White Wellbeing, and appearing on the All Stars portion of the Honors Roll Call today are Child of Lindbergh, Joseph, Final Blossom, White Healing, and Going Free. Gotta love that name. And the remaining on the Honors Roll Call are Arvandigel, Hendrickson, Scott, Clay, Darcy, William, and Gregory, Wingate. What is this? Is it Charisma? Oh, yes. Kimberly. Is this type of cheese? Rockford Traitor, I believe. Robert, Save Western Civilization Now. Miss DeRay. Crackus, Dean. King Petrus. Brad and Jim. Ohesian Outlaw. Goofy Grape. J.P. Last Paleocon. Happy Cat. And Michigan Wave. I salute, applaud, and celebrate that there are heroes like you all who have the integrity to act on your sterling principles. Ladies and gentlemen, please thank them if you are not one of them. A couple of announcements. About an hour ago, I tweeted 2 tweets with a video of my amended response to Donald Trump's response of the white supremacy question during the debate. It's about 50 seconds long. In the first tweet, both with the same video, I tagged a number of conservative and MAGA type individuals, content producers on Twitter. And in the second, which should be higher on the thread, I tagged the president himself, the first lady, their campaign, and the like. Please retweet and like these tweets, and do it right now if you are so inclined. And then, maybe a little later, retweet them with some targeting some content producers of your own. Conservative, First Amendment, Second Amendment, pro-life, free speech, MAGA creators, all of these sorts of folks. We are in October, and we need to remember that we are in the October sprint to the election. As for the crown winner of last week, the crown goes to our very own Mrs. Jess Horst for gifting a total of 100 Prometheus Rising dollars. Thank you so much for everything you have done for us, dear lady. You are an absolute star in service to white well-being. In second place was Rub-a-Dub. Thank you so much, dear lady, gifting $10. Congratulations to you as well. You all can financially gift on Entropy when it will be up in just a moment at 15%. You can also watch the stream there, and you can ask and vote on questions in the question widget, or you can slide on over to Cash App, which you will find down in the description, to financially gift there as well. Say it with me, ladies and gentlemen. Jared and I evenly share the financial gifts with our guests here on the After Party. Now, today, we have one of our greatest champions for white well-being, Tim Murdock, on tap with us. Brother, please introduce yourself to those who may not know who you are. We're having new people join the community every day. Tell them where they can find you, and then Mr. George will take us into the conversation. You are muted. Let me see. Can I help you, or?
That's why I don't like muting myself. I'm not used to that button. There you go. I'm Tim Murdock, run White Rabbit Radio. I'm known basically through animations, mostly animations like Anti-Racist Hitler, How Whites Took Over America, memes like all the white genocide stuff, and well as anti-racism as a code word for anti-white. I help get that stuff out there. And you can find me on D Live, White Rabbit Radio, and I'm trying to rehost right now, No White Guilt. Hopefully, there we go. And you can find me there, and you can also find me at whiterabbitradio.net. Euro Rabbit on Twitter. I've never really changed that, although I may one day. Who knows? And that's about it.
And for anyone listening in the replay, what am I about to say? If you're on our sites, you'll see all of Tim's links listed. Now, this is actually Tim's third appearance on the after party for all of you archivists. You were our first show of this year, of this fateful year of 2020. You always hold that distinction. I think it was back on January 2nd, Tim. And then you appeared with our friend Oliver Semiagog in March as COVID news was just starting to really blow up here in the US and the lockdowns were starting to happen. It was kind of a big picture. What the heck is happening? But as you said, you're known for really being a master of mimetics, understanding how language proliferates and how that causes subtle but very meaningful consciousness shifts. And so, of course, we want to talk about it being October, like Jason said. We're about a month away from this big U.S. presidential election. So we'll be casting some things in that context, of course. But we want to get your take, because this is so your territory, on this tremendous news that we had about 1 month ago now, Labor Day weekend, with Trump retweeting tweets using terms like anti-white, and then other influential people doing the same, him calling things like critical race theory training for federal U.S. employees poison, I think he said, if my memory serves, but he certainly used some harsh terms for it. And while we take a nuanced approach to, of course, the game that is politics, we recognize a victory for what it is, and we recognize, no matter what people may think of other things going on politically, how important it is for people in that position to be giving air to terms like this, something you've been working on your whole life. So what is your take on all that, if you could kind of set the stage generally to begin with?
Well, on one end, you have the highest office in the land validating a particular term, which is important. He's done this type of thing before in the last campaign when he was actually running a much better campaign at the time, I would say. But this campaign is looking a little interesting in its last days. I mean, it's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It's a very big positive. I wish we'd see it used more. I don't think they'll allow anyone to use it more. It's just my impression, talking to people that work at various different networks and stuff like that. There's like a blackout on using such terms. I wish he would blow out the debates and use something like that, call white supremacy an anti-white slur and ask him what he means by that. Start trying to nail some people down. He could easily do that. He doesn't. So on one end of the spectrum, it's a phenomenal thing. It'll eventually just be mainstream and used every day. Until then, we just have to keep pushing. But it can be frustrating watching this type of back and forth and watching him get beat up over white supremacy. Although his immediate first instincts are always pretty good, pretty decent, pretty white. But then he comes back and equivocates. I don't know if I'd want to be the Proud Boys right now. I tell you that much, because I don't know. It doesn't look good for groups right now at all. Like that, having Trump run to them, or having Trump, he kind of ran to them, then disavowed them. The type of thing isn't good around him, because that usually means that group's getting lined up or whatever. It's just, it is kind of a tough call right now. You got a guy that comes down with COVID. Now that could mean he's an automatic winner. We don't know. If the guy doesn't die, he could very easily win. And I don't think he's going to die. So we'll have to see 10 days from now. I would like to see him go crazy, and he may, but I won't. I'll have to see it though.
What do you mean by go crazy?
Just start calling everything anti-white. I'd like to see that. I think it's time. I think it's primed. I think a tweet is good. We've seen this type of thing before, but we want it flooding the airwaves and stuff like that. It is very frustrating to watch them play over this anti-white slur, white supremacist. Very frustrating indeed, because he knows how to counter it. His first instincts are to counter that, but at the same time, it's like someone's holding him back. Something's holding him back. So I don't know.
Do you have any finger on the pulse outside of immediate colleagues and contacts to kind of take the temperature of how the people out there, we have some different terms for vagues. Some people like normies, but we don't really like that because that's casting us as abnormal, whereas we're the normal ones. But what's your take, if you have any, on how people are processing this ridiculous contrast where cities are being burned down in the name of certain groups, and yet, quote, white supremacy is the problem. I mean, are more people seeing through that? It's such an apparent Emperor's New Clothes type of moment.
I think that Ann Coulter did a pretty good article on that. Actually, every once in a while she does a good article on stuff like this.
Was that the Tackies one?
No, that was I don't know. I just know it just came out. It came out not long ago. And she was basically in the last maybe 48 hours or whatever, she was basically talking about that what a joke this is. And I think the average person feels that way. The average guy, the average white normal guy walking down the street doesn't really understand it. Those that don't understand it, those that are kind of frustrated by it, you know, I do think that it's moving in that particular direction. But at the same time, you got to have that type of confirmation. You need talking heads on TV. You need talking heads online. You need talking heads all over the place. We're a very top-down society where media has a great deal of control. So if they're blocking out words and stuff like that, well, then it's not going to flow. It's not going to flow that quickly. It just takes longer. That's all it does. They can't hold it back. It's just going to take longer.
Yeah, I want to get back to that for a moment. What you just said, it's going to take longer, but they can't ultimately hold it back. When you were first on in January, we got pretty interesting. You got, I would say, a little even esoteric at times, talking about the resonance of sound frequencies and words being repeated, and it changing people's perception. Even though a lot of people, unfortunately, do wait for that top-down messaging, they turn on the TV to be fed their opinions. You do seem to be going in the same direction we are, in that you're affirming the usage of terms like anti-white and other lexicon that frees people from these mind cages is on the rise, and there's no stopping it. It's a matter of time.
No, agree.
Can you kind of give for anyone new, a review of how this actually works, of how someone might say, what do you say to the person that says, you guys are a bunch of guys online, you're talking to each other, and outside of your echo chamber, how is it that you think you're going to affect the world in passing around mimetics and passing around language? You think it's really going to bubble up? Do you have delusions of grandeur? What do you say to the person who's critical of the kind of things we do in that regard?
Well, before you ever hear, well, they shouldn't get involved if that's their attitude. You know, it's kind of like a waste of time to get involved in something you don't believe in or you haven't done your homework on. But before you hear rap music, before you heard rap music all over the place, the first thing you did was you heard it on the radio. The internet has become the new radio. It's the new TV. And smaller channels, even medium-sized channel, can make a big impact. The stuff I've worked on is all over the planet. The stuff you guys are working on is all over the place. Words like anti-white. It is one of those type of things where there was a video that I just had my fingertips on, and I don't know what happened to it. I'm trying to look all over for it. It had they're called monochromes or monocoms. They look like little clocks. They have it looks like a clock, and it has a vertical brass thing going back and forth. Okay. And one particular guy is proving resonance with this.
Oh, that's it. Yeah, keep going. I think I know what you're talking about. Go ahead.
And I forget exactly what they're called. I never heard that term for them before, but there's literally like 100 or 200 of them. And what he's doing is he's going around, and they're all stopped, and he's going around and getting them going tick, 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 tick. And so what happens as he gets near the end is they start synchronizing, magically synchronizing. And this is what happened with the word racist. The more it's used, the more society starts synchronizing behind it. The more it's used, it wasn't used all the time. I mean, our ancestors weren't really afraid of being called racist in 1955 or anything like that. That would come much, much later, like now. But at the same time, you have to understand that the more something's used, the more it gets used, and it's a repetition. It's almost like watching paint on the wall until it gets a little more interesting. It's like I often compare it to throwing, to use another analogy, to throwing pebbles into a pond. At first, it doesn't seem like much, but then all of a sudden, there's ripples everywhere. And the threat that this stuff is out there for the enemy, it is a threat. They got to have a handle on everything at the top. Everything underneath that is ours.
Right. What do you think about the efficaciousness of language as like we use here, what you have used, that wins for individuals in conversations when they come upon somebody using the anti-white slurs like racist and white supremacist, and they're able then to walk away from those conversations victorious? How do you think that those interactions in their plethora end up playing out into society, particularly as we're in obviously an election cycle and moving toward this acme, this crescendo of the election? How do you think that plays out for the individuals and the spread of those memes, that lexicon of dialectics that are successful?
I've watched this type of thing over the years, and those individuals generally go on to generally influence everyone around them. That's the big thing. It isn't so much about arguing. You can't argue with robots or brainwashed people, but it's really reaching people around that particular person. It's almost like bouncing the obvious off a robot or something. It wakes up everyone around them. And that's the important point. I mean, you're coming on my show this Thursday, and we're going to talk about a lot of this stuff because I have 2 of your books right now. I finally got them in and read them, and I've got some interesting things to say about it. But I've seen this online. I've seen these online interactions, these personal interactions in regards to using various different phrases and words, and we know what works. Basically, everyone comes to the general conclusion. The question is, who wants to argue with anti-whites? Right. They can get kind of boring after a while arguing with them, but at the same time, it serves a purpose in waking up everyone around them. Eventually, someone will use one on a stage somewhere, and it'll just blow the doors off of everything because it'll be so obvious to most people. That's how this works. But I always talk about our enemy. When I first gave a first speech in public, I think it was 2011, I talked about the neocons had a very successful meme at the time. Ahmadinejad is going to wipe Israel off the map. And only a half dozen of them got that going on Fox News and other media outlets. Ahmadinejad is going to wipe Israel off the map. And the tendency for our side of the equation, as well as the enemy will, or anyone is really to look for the truth, especially whites. That's why we don't ever want to start lying or using dubious associations. With that being said, they are constantly creating associations that don't exist in the real world. And so at the time, the average pro-white would be digging it down, would be trying to say, and this is what Ahmadinejad really said. And that's our side's tendency to start going in these type of academic hair splitting. And
please tell people why that doesn't work. That's an important point. Because it's done everywhere. It's done endlessly. And you're the kind of guy to give an opinion to how this doesn't work.
You can't, it's kind of like you're bringing a gun to a nuclear war. It's just not going to work. That's to put it the simplest way possible. You can only fight fire with fire. If someone calls you a white supremacist, you really are just in a name calling match. Even advanced arguments that could be very good in certain circumstances won't work in others because he's calling you a name. It's like a playground, na. And that's what it is. It is a variation of psychological warfare. And you'd see the neocons say, "Oh, so you're saying Ahmadinejad's not going to wipe Israel off the map? Are you an anti-Semite? Are you saying they go down this line of thinking?" And to be honest with you, we got to start doing that with the truth.
Mm-hmm.
So you're anti-white. So you're using anti-white slurs and constantly keep people on the defensive. Once you have something weaponized in society, you just keep using it as a hammer, just like they've done with racism. And unless we can complete that particular process, which has started, then, of course, all hope is lost. But that process is being replicated every day. People are doing it more and more. The word is being used more and more. Eventually, it'll break out. And I don't know, I've heard, who was the last person I heard on Fox News? Laura Ingraham or something said it, and she caught herself, then corrected, then got off the subject afterwards. We've seen this before on channels like Fox News. I don't know.
What was she about to say?
She said anti-white. I've seen her say anti-white before. We'd have to go back into the last election cycle. There was some very interesting stuff said, but it is a big deal.
And that that exact term blacklisted?
Yeah, I've been told that. The only ones that have ever showed up, Yeah, Fox News. That's my understanding. Not only was the individual, the only reporters that ever showed up at my house are Fox News. The only ones that ever showed up at Whitaker's house, Fox News local, both here and South Carolina, and not that particular reporter, but someone associated had talked about that this stuff is blacklisted there, at least at the time. I do remember that I didn't know if it was true. Maybe they're yanking my chain or something. You never really know, but I don't know why they would really lie about it, because it was starting to be used and all of a sudden, they don't use it anymore. And all you do is just increase the volume on it. But I do know that Richard Spencer had talked about something else to that he had a source at Fox News to say everything was blacklisted. They can't use any of our stuff. So I thought that was kind of an interesting coincidence. I don't think he'd lie about it either. When it comes to something like that, there's just no point in it. So I do believe that there was a huge push to break things out, and then they got reeled back by the owners. However that works, I mean, they're all on the same payroll, so it's pretty easy to control people, I think. Editing. There's a lot of controlled editing going on, and there's a whole entire subculture that's dominating. Trump feels that he has to appeal to it to be elected, but at the same time, we have guys on our side that say, "Oh, it's no big deal." Well, he's doing it. I don't think we should trust anyone right now because they're not openly on our side. That's my opinion. I mean, there's a lot of different debates over. I look for outliers, and Trump is definitely an outlier. There's no doubt about that. And so that's kind of what's important to him to me. But I don't really trust this guy. Like if I were the Proud Boys, I wouldn't trust him, because even if they go after him, when they do, he can't do anything to help them. He doesn't seem to be able to do anything. The only thing he can do really well is run his mouth. I just wish he'd just start calling them anti-white, because he could win off that, believe it or not.
Mm-hmm.
He could go from the defensive. His instincts are immediately good. I think if you ever saw anyone do it on Tucker Carlson or Fox News or whatever he watches all the time, that's my understanding, that he would replicate it. He doesn't have any problem with stealing stuff and replicating it, I don't believe.
On that note, Tim, do you think, from what we do and everyone here, because everyone participates online, social media, any particular terms to focus on, or modifications of old terms, or responses to things in the news being said right now that are particularly important this next month as we near the U.S. election?
Well, I mean, the white supremacy stuff is obviously absurd. Anyone on our side is going to be, going crazy over hearing this. Trump's initial response was pretty good for the average white guy response, maybe even above average. It was a response that a guy gives when he can't be fired. And he's appealing to his comrades or whatever. It could have been better, but I'm nitpicking. I'm nitpicking for you guys here. I don't have one in particular. I just look for only a couple things over and over again, as well as the white frustration and the whites being ticked off over things.
What about this?
Well, everyone, stay tuned because. Oh no, I was just going to say, stay tuned because we're probably, unless you're about to get into Tim's thoughts on the election in a little bit, we just had a few questions about Mimetics before getting to that. But what were you going to say?
Go ahead.
I was going that direction, but Tim or Jared, please.
Which direction? The election or the Mimetics?
Mimetics.
Okay, yeah, we're gonna keep everyone on their toes a little bit, and you have to wait till the end to hear some of Tim's thoughts about this next month and what's happening. But yes, with the Mimetics, we wanted to ask you about finding the ping. Jason, I think that was the next thing we wanted to talk about. What we didn't get to that. We had a few juicy questions left over all the way back from January, which I don't know about you guys. That feels like 3 years ago to me. So much has gone on. But
it was just yesterday. It was just yesterday.
I can't believe you were our first tab guest in 2020, and it's still 2020 in a good way, in certain ways. It's been a good year personally, I'm happy to say. But anyway, what does finding the ping mean?
That was an analogy.
Take us deeper into this Mimetics.
When they start breaking glass using sound, or using sound is a pressure wave, it's a vibration. People don't take it seriously because they can't see it. There's a lot of new weapons coming out based on sound. You crowd control, blasting, killing, blowing eardrums, making people blind through pressure waves. We don't take it seriously because we can't see it. I know if you ever record it on Audacity or Reaper or anything, you can see the pressure waves bouncing up and down. We assume that when we stop saying something, that the sound waves, the pressure waves stop. It doesn't work that way. They keep on basically resonating out there. That's why you want more and more people saying the same thing. It puts all those little things we were talking about, those little clocks, on the same resonance. But finding the ping is often referenced when an opera singer or someone starts pinging a particular glass object, let's say a wine goblet. There's a lot of videos on this, how sound breaks glass. They ping it. They're finding the resonance, the frequency at which it will vibrate. And if you can make it vibrate, and everything in the universe vibrates at a particular frequency, even humans, if you can make it vibrate, you can destroy it. It's very simple and not necessarily easy. You got to find the ping. Now, back in the day when I first got exposed to this type of thing, we were working with the diabolical meme, white genocide, the one that of such fame and fortune. And what I would notice, as opposed to, let's say, its big competitors, now at the time there was not a lot of people talking about replacement or displacement or anything like that. It was just kind of like Whitaker with his, America counterpoint, white genocide. And at the time, replacement, which is always easier to say, displacement easy to say, which I found totally ineffective. But replacement was like the big European one, and it still is. Now they've somewhat become interchangeable, I think, but most Europeans, understand they're being wiped out to some extent. Those that will talk about replacement are just, are saying that, and some are trying to avoid jail time. But at the time, using that in America and I would say the English-speaking world writ large would just bring a reaction. All right, we're replacing you, and they would just yawn, or displacement would be yawn, and then they would hem and haw about this or that. But I noticed when you started using the big WG, they just started going absolutely crazy. They started going nuts. You would just notice the whole entire table. You'd have white nationalists getting up. So why are you saying that? It's only for South Africa. I'm just interested in doing what's working. I'm going to see if this old guy from the Reagan administration knows his stuff. Can he write slogans, whatever. So we start using this stuff. And I just noticed that everyone, the anti-whites would start laughing and then just say, yeah, that's what we're doing, wiping you out. And that's kind of what you want, actually. You want honesty. Mm-hmm. You got to bring them out. Some people would be laughing and saying, no, that's not true. Then they'll turn around and justify it, which they always do. We're not wiping you out, but you deserve it. You can't justify something you say is not occurring. They'll go over the reasons you should be wiped out and you are being wiped. It's just, and then of course you come back to some people don't understand it. It had so much packed at one dinner table. It's just like, okay, you got something here. You got something that can really drive a conversation. That can make people grow. The anti-whites can never keep their hands off any of this stuff. Anti-white is one of those delicious terms because you can't really ban it. You can't do anything with it. It just sits in the air for someone to use like a giant jackhammer on their heads, and it immediately puts them in a defensive. I'm not anti-white, but which is what we want to see. For years and decades, we hear the cuck servitards and all the idiots. I'm not racist, but we want the enemy saying I'm not anti-white, but and we do hear this. I do have I go over it from time to time. Because I get Google searches on the term every day. I don't know that they're as accurate as they once were. They used to catch them all, but the last one I saw was about Black Lives Matter. It was just in the last couple of weeks, and I think I might have retweeted. I tweeted this out. I don't recall, but the whole entire point. I know maybe I talked about it on White Rabbit Radio Live, which is Saturday nights at 5:00. By the way, interesting enough, tomorrow night I'll be with Symiogog. For those of you guys that are fans with Symiogog.
I like how that works.
Resonance. We're finding resonance, but where I lost my train of thought. But the word is just difficult for them to do anything with, which is why they don't like any of this stuff. They just don't like it.
You were talking about the Black Lives Matter, and perhaps there was that rally that a Black Lives Matter group had where they had held signs up that saying that they were not anti-white. And in fact, this argument, this debate, slogomachy that ended up occurring yesterday over on Mark's channel, and you should check it out, folks, if you haven't seen it, with the Black Hammer organization, a non-white against white people organization that is focused on wiping out white people and replacing us and taking everything back, as they would put it, of course. They actually are so dumb that it says on their website that they are the anti-white revolution. So they're actually drinking the poison. That it would be like Mark saying that he's the racist revolution. I mean, it would be the dumbest thing possible.
Well, that's what you want.
Yes.
Here's the thing. It doesn't matter the context that they repeat any of our phrases. It doesn't matter whether they're making fun of it. It doesn't matter. In hindsight, if you look at the word racist, it didn't matter that the conservatives were making fun of it. What matters is they had imposed terminology. And when they impose terminology, they're imposing ideology in one fell swoop. Our ideology is the most radical in the history of the world. It's just white and normal, terrifying and radical. But all you want them doing is repeating our stuff. Because that's the only thing people are going to remember. People are not going to remember your advanced, sophisticated arguments.
Right.
Unfortunately, if that were true, we'd been in pole position a long time ago. But no, people only remember very simple words repeated over and over again, even very smart people.
Now, let me ask you, how do you visualize? We were talking about sound and the power of sound frequencies. And of course, you were mentioning some of these new crowd control weapons, which of course we have not seen used on
in America.
Sorry?
In America.
Right. I'm sure if we were to get into the streets, I've witnessed these things operate where they can induce like instant loosing of people's bowels, instant vomiting with sound waves, knowing exactly how to hit people. There's nothing. They focus it like a laser beam, and so they could just sweep it through a crowd if they wanted and knock out as many people as they wanted. And this would be, they could make it less than lethal. So we're talking about the power of sound, and how do you visualize breaking with the memes and the language that we use, with keeping this in mind, that sound in and of itself has a power. I've said increasingly on my work that language is magic. It changes things. You can't. We could say that in our little group, when we say the word tree, it's going to mean something else. But we always are going to see the word tree. It's always going to have that same effect. It ended up being the name for that thing in space because there was probably some sort of relation that we don't understand quite yet. How do you see how do you visualize the language and memes that we create shattering the chains that are wrapped around us of the memes that the anti-whites have created, of the language and arguments that the anti-whites have created? How do you see that? And perhaps that'll help folks, I think, get a better understanding of what we're talking about here.
Well, I mean, it's basically, it shatters it just like an opera singer shattering a wine goblet with sound. It's a matter of raising the volume. We got stuff that works. It's just a matter of more people using it over and over again. And you can't use the stuff too much because most people have never heard it. There's still going to be we don't even know. A lot of times words affect people and they're not even realizing it. I mean, how many times have you heard an advertising for something and then a couple of days later stopped to get that very same product and without even consciously realizing it? There's a lot of stuff going on with mimetics and sound. And it's very manipulative. I mean, the average person watching this probably in the last week or the next week or the next month, a friend, a family member, husband, wife will set them off like a bottle rocket just by saying the wrong thing. And what do we try to do? We try to watch our words with loved ones, not to set them off if you know someone's temperamental on a subject or is kind of maybe self-conscious or something. But you know, we all make mistakes, but it doesn't really matter how high IQ that person is. You say the wrong thing, or you walk in and your wife is wearing a dress and you say the wrong thing about the dress. and set her off like a bottle rocket, and it's not that she's thinking about it at all. She's just reacting to the vibration, the sound, reacting to the words. And that is something it's typical of human nature. So I see that pretty much like a wave, and it's like a giant wave out there, a giant white wave coming into the shore. And what we're on it early surfing. And you're welcome to be on it with us, but everyone's going to eventually have to be on it. Sooner or later, the world's going to demand someone speak for whites.
Yep.
And you got too much money, too much military industrial complex, too many defense goodies. Someone's going to have to speak for them. It won't be Chinese. It won't be non-whites. I mean, they all want their own spokesperson right now. But who's speaking for whites? No one.
No one.
No one but traders and what do they call them on D-Live? The Amish. The Amish are speaking.
You hear that, folks? We're surfers here, early surfers. Kind of as a follow-up to that question, Tim, before we get into the election in our last portion today, you've been at this a while. Going right off of what you were just saying, how have you seen online cultures and subcultures and things that we're part of ripple out into real life, into even mainstream media or other forms of media?
Well, I mean, it's pervasive when you talk about the 4chan culture, the meme culture that developed, the various different terms and phrases, the remaking of songs into parodies. That stuff is on any given day can be anywhere. It's all over the place. It tends to, young people tend to gravitate toward things that are taboo, that they're not supposed to talk about. So It doesn't really matter. Even I remember I was exposed to just recently a young French rapper. He was a young French rapper. He looks like he was from North Africa or whatever. And he is coming up on trial in France, because he has a hit record talking about, basically, it's like a huge 4chan thread on the real world.
We have a couple of questions already, folks, but I want to make sure that everybody knows that we are going to be with our good hero and veteran here, Tim Murdock, for just a bit longer. So make sure if you have questions or financial gifts that you would like to give now, then do so. Get them in before the end of the show. And I would also just briefly say, just because it's news right now and people are reaching out to me, that President T-Rex has gone into the hospital because of this COVID-19 infection. And I surmise that it's for early testing to keep a watch on how the disease is progressing inside of him, rather than because he's in some sort of desperate state. So if you all have any questions, please make sure you get them in now. Looks like we have roughly 15 or so more minutes to go. And Mr. George, I toss it back to you.
Well, as I said, we just wanted to make sure we had a little time to get, Tim, your thoughts on the election. So I know that's no small topic, but what's your 30,000-foot view of what's gone on and what we can expect in a wild October? Or maybe not expect. That's the name of the game. You don't know what to expect in 2020.
I don't know. He doesn't really have the time to. I mean, if he's going to hospital, it looks like they're just putting him under observation at Walter Reed because of the fatigue and stuff. That's looking at the headlines, and I've been watching this one here the last few minutes. I can't really tell, obviously, just yet what happens if he's really sick in the hospital and gets reelected. I don't know. I mean, there's so many different scenarios that come in. I do know that this reminds me almost of the Boris Johnson situation. It's that Boris Johnson had a great deal of time, and he won a great deal of sympathy by going in the hospital, and he was pretty bad shape, though. He got in supposedly bad shape. You never know. I mean, Michael Moore is accusing this all of being a giant act, and they're using this to give Trump publicity, and he is basically Michael Moore's opinion is that this is all just a big publicity stunt. I don't know about that. I mean, there is a real virus. I don't know. We'll have to see exactly how this pans out for him. But, stranger things have happened, I guess. But it kind of reminds me of the Boris Johnson situation. If they have to put him under or whatever, will he transfer power to Pence? I don't know. You never know what's going to happen here. You never know what's going to happen. And, he's an outlier. If he gets reelected, the whole entire establishment is against him. So you think the odds are way against him getting reelected because the whole entire establishment is trying to, every single day we got some scandal they're trying to break on him. They have something they're doing. They've written him off for dead, and that, he can't win and doesn't have the votes. And it's like the whole entire establishment, they just came down on Melania. They were leaking phone calls of Melania Trump. It's just ridiculous. It's so bad that even like your stereotypical white nationalist will email me and say, what am I missing about this guy? Why is the whole entire everyone in power in America against this guy? And he's just not in their crew. He's in a different crew. Something they don't really, I don't think most people have their hands around yet. And we'll have to see what happens. White America will be on knife's edge. Let's say Joe Biden does get elected, which of course they tell me the polls. If I go to YouTube and they tell me everything on YouTube, Joe Biden has to be elected. It's inevitable. Well, let's say that YouTube is right and that the polls are right and that it's not another 2016. One outlier under Biden will be white America will be on knife's edge, and he will peel back, at least at first, and try to keep anything from getting too crazy. The idea of revenge against Trump's base is a pretty big topic among the left, but I mean, this is like Obama 2.0, except a lot more dangerous because the stuff they have on the table is basically to make us a minority overnight and make it so permanently, basically. Delete white America permanently. That's what's on the table. You guys have covered this plenty. But at the same time, you're really going to have to watch it. I've never seen white America so much on an edge. Now, Trump does kind of put them to sleep, but he awakens the enemy. He sets off the enemy like dynamite. And on the other hand, if he doesn't get reelected, Biden get reelected with Kamala Harris. And I'm interested to see how that debate with Pence goes. For all we know, Trump could be in a debate in 2 weeks' time and win the election. It's so speculative. It's so speculative. I mean, this guy, there's going to be a lot of camera and a lot of attention on him. And what happens if Joe Biden comes down with the COVID, down with the coof as well? That's crazy stuff. By default, then Pence wins. There's all kinds of different speculative possibilities. We'll just have to play it by day. But the outlier under Biden, and outliers will go in our direction. The outlier under Biden, it will be white America is on knife's edge with all the Black Lives Matter and all the anti-white ridiculousness, and them labeling anyone they disagree with white supremacists. I mean, people are noticing that, and white America will be on knife's edge over that. And that is something that we can play into our hands. They're going to be under Obama 1.0. A lot of people weren't probably making videos, a lot of different content creators. We have so many wonderful content creators now doing a variety of different types of contents, but most of them were probably not making podcasts or videos or anything under Obama. I was. Not videos, but podcasts and animations. And I can tell you the growth under Obama was like Wall Street meeting Silicon Valley for the first time. It was like crazy. It was crazy because every time Eric Holder said something, it was blatantly anti-white. White America understood it as anti-white because it's a black man. There's no candy cutter, and he's not like, okay, this is a white guy. He's trying to get around these terms. They're like, no, this black guy's coming after us.
Right.
And that type of thing, that type of that brutal, stark contrast of Kamala Harris getting on there, and the one to watch in the next couple of weeks is this Supreme Court justice. This Supreme Court justice, this confirmation of this white woman who adopts the black kids. And she's liberal to me. She's just another liberal, white, anti-white. They call her conservative. Maybe she is on one issue like abortion or something. Who knows what she's conservative on, what she's trying to conserve. I don't know. But she has, 5 wonderful white children, adopts 2 Haitians. And the best thing we could see is Kamala Harris really going after her, which she may have to do for her base. And that is going to be something wonderful. But this could be a primer to what we could see if Biden gets elected. But white America will be on knife's edge because of all the anti-white hostility. They will be looking hard over facts. Trump, of course, has thrown this, he's peeled back the suburbs thing, the flooding the suburbs or the forced integrating the suburbs. What else has he done? He's done a lot of stuff of late to try to appeal to his base. I just don't know. The COVID thing is kind of like a toss-up. It can actually really help him like it did Boris Johnson. I don't know how much time we have, or it could be the end. We don't know. I don't know what to say.
If you had the ear, if we could anthropomorphize the re-election campaign for Trump for a moment, and we see that we have you just, I guess, for about 8 or 9 more minutes. So we're gonna keep Tim talking as long as we can, ladies and gentlemen, until he has to just go. As soon as he's getting up, he'll be halfway off this video, clicking hang up on the phone there, so that we'll have every second of him. But if you had the ear of the re-election campaign, given the state that as things are, the context as things are right now, where the internet is, and this is harkening back to the influence of the internet on the conversation, that discussion we were addressing a moment ago, how would you, or what kind of recommendations might you make to this Republican re-election campaign that might jibe well with what we already see on the internet? So that might be not necessarily your druthers. It might not be the best case. Like, if you could have anything you wanted in the world, it would be X. But if speaking to the establishment as it is right now, with the way the internet is right now, what kind of recommendations might you make to that re-election campaign?
Well, I would, if you're in a name calling match, he's going to have to go with some type of name to call the liberals. And I can think of nothing better than anti-white. There's nothing they can't say, oh, that's just used by white supremacists, because that's not exactly accurate. It's used by a lot of people in a lot of different contexts, whether it be Black Lives Matter defending themselves from them or anything like that. He needs to use it. I mean, when you're getting called a name, you got to have a name to call the enemy. And so that's kind of the big thing. The things he's done to roll back various different programs here, although, Biden might put them back in place, it may be very difficult, though, for Biden to really move that quick on a lot of things.
Yeah,
you could be dealing with 40 million people on such a knife's edge that the establishment is extremely afraid of him. You see, they got Trump under control. The problem, as it was always explained to me, is they're terrified of us. They're terrified of his base. Mm-hmm. The alt-right has always been accused of the neocons of punching well beyond their weight, whatever you want to call us. White positive, we punch well beyond our weight. They understand this stuff is out there, but they've done a pretty good job of keeping him sequestered, except in regards to his Twitter. So I would basically go down that. I think he's doing a lot of different things of late, as far as rolling back this law, rolling back that law, that he should have been doing for 4 years. Now, he might have get stonewalled. He might just say, look, I'm trying to get real. He could tell his benefactors that, look, I'm trying to get reelected. We got to start early. He would have the election locked up if he would have been doing this type of rollback type strategy. Now, what can he do? He can, at the presidential level, do what he did to various different executive orders by Obama that are anti-white, just keep rolling them back. But he could have been doing that for quite a while, but he hasn't. So, it's not a guy a lot of people are going to trust, because it's one thing for him to be able to do it, but there's a whole entire apparatus around him that's working against him all the time. So even if he were really, let's say, on our side, which I don't, just think he's a white guy with some decent instincts on any given day. Mm-hmm. If he were really secretly on our side, everyone around him is going to be sabotaging him right, left, and center. But if he could say what he tweeted that day, that'd be pretty epic. I think it would go a long ways. They would blow up over it. Oh my God, they would blow up over it. And that would be even better, because when you come into this particular line, when you use this type of stuff over and over again, you find they get more frustrated and they start blowing up. They blew up over him just not groveling in front of the term white supremacy, and he didn't grovel. What would be nice is to watch them grovel in front of just being called anti-white, and just stone them with it. Just, well, you're anti-white. It's typical of the anti-white perspective, or typical of the anti-white narrative, or, well, you're speaking from the anti-white point of view. I'm not anti-white. Instead of rotating around with, it's un-American, which is okay, but he's playing around with stuff and not using it. Yeah. It seems like, I don't know. And it's very frustrating to watch. Someone will use it one day and it'll go wild, but that isn't today, obviously. But that's something that would be obviously a game changer. It breaks things wide open. Doing it on Twitter is one thing. He's got to do it. But, there's a whole particular opinion that he's, does whatever it takes to gain power. And that's something that would gain power quite quickly in the social space because it's all geared for someone to do it from the top.
Right. Well, we're gonna hit you with one more question because I know you're getting ready to roll out. You got a hard end, and I think what Jared and I will do is we'll wrap up the show after you jet. But I would like to know if in the final minutes that you have available for us, brother, back into that mindset. You're back. You're able to talk with the re-election committee for Donald Trump. And at the same time, you're able to talk to our audience. We are now obviously a rapidly growing community. And we have this phenomenon before us of this powerful language. Some things work, some things don't work. Some things undermine us. Some things make us weaker. There's a lot that the anti-whites have that work for them. And we are infected with many of those same ideas. If you could, just for a couple minutes before you have to go, take the sort of the three-dimensional finished product of a meme and unfold that for us. What exactly goes into the making of a meme? What are some of the thoughts to initiate that process? What are some of the considerations as you work through that construction?
Well, actually, I've never constructed one. If I have, it's by accident. I think that when you start talking about the famous meme dealing with the planned extinction, you're dealing with a fellow that wrote slogans for years. Some of the more famous stuff was revolving around the Hubble telescope and things like that they had a big problem with getting through in Congress at one time. But one of the challenges is you kind of have to take different approaches that people often don't expect. I often talk about our particular type of outlier type situation where we're on the outside and we're having to develop strategies that break things wide open that they're going to obviously block. They don't want it in. They don't want it discussed. And we're going to keep pushing and pushing until the pressure just rises and blows the top off of everything. But I often talk about one famous ad campaign that was very interesting because it's very similar to our position at one time. And that was the original Wendy's ad campaign, Where's the Beef? Where's the Beef was very controversial because, you had McDonald's, the Golden Arches, and whatever the McDonald's slogan of at the time. And then you had, Burger King's famous Have It Your Way.
Yes.
For their Whopper. But Wendy's was this upstart, and they had a serious challenge because the burger wars were between these two chains, Burger King and McDonald's. So what do you do? What do you do in this type of situation? And the ad campaign, this is one of the more controversial ads because it requires an explanation.
Mm-hmm.
If you really think about the McDonald's slogans, the drink Coca-Colas, none of that major brand advertising really requires an explanation. It's associated with brands because it mentions the brand product in question. But Wendy's Where's the Beef? The little, where's the beef? Where's the beef?
That, yeah.
Is from ages ago. That was so controversial because it demands an explanation. What do you mean, where's the beef? What's the beef? What are they talking about? Where's the beef? And that was the genius of it. That was the absolute genius of it, is that it demanded an explanation, and that's what they needed to start breaking into the burger wars. So that is kind of one of the particular ways. I mean, our stuff was typically honed down. The stuff I witnessed was honed down over 200 piece. They would look like 200 piece short essays where you could tease out various different slogans and try them. But the Wendy's ones is kind of a good example of the stuff that we have to continuously do. And we want to tag our stuff with the most direct, most aggressive, and the most honest things the enemy has that they've talked about historically, you know?
Well said, brother. Well, I know you're in the final minute and 30 seconds or so. Could you please tell us what you'll be working on next and where folks can find you so that they can follow you and hear more of your insights from here forward?
Well, whiterabbitradio.biz is a new I have whiterabbitradio.net, which is the main site, but whiterabbitradio.biz, very simple. You can get all of our particular links. We stream on DLive Tuesdays and Saturdays. Tuesdays at 5:30, Saturdays at 5 o'clock to 7. Tomorrow night we have Simiagog on. I have a whole host of guests coming up here. I mean, quite literally, from Horace out of the Nasty Mutant out of the UK to Critiqued out of Ireland to Full Moon Ancestry to Fash Gordon on the paywall. Next week we have a special with yours truly, Jason Köhne, on Thursday from 2 to 4, and the whole thing's free. You can watch that one. Typically the paywall stuff is the first hour is free, and the second hour I got to pay bills. And the following week is Henrik Palmgren. So we do have a lot of stuff coming up, and you definitely want to pay attention to DLive/White Rabbit Radio. But again, you can always go to whiterabbitradio.biz and find all our particular channels. On Twitter, I've never changed it. I'm at Eurorabbit, just how it sounds. And it's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. And stop in, ask any question anytime, and definitely be there for Jason, because we're going to be talking about his books going free, which I have, and Prometheus, his mythology.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for being with us here today, brother. Yeah, and everybody follow us over there when I'm going to be over there with Tim. It's going to be a fantastic conversation, hopefully as scintillating as this one was, but it's always a pleasure to have you on, sir, and we look forward to having you back soon.
And it's a pleasure to be here. I appreciate you guys having me on, as always. I look forward to doing more of these shows with you guys. Cheers.
All right, brother. Bye-bye.
Great speaking, Tim. Have a good night.
All right, we're going to wrap it up quickly because we have the garage party coming. And thank you so much.
Yes,
brother.
I mentioned that in the chat already, coming up at the top of the hour. I also put Jason's tweet in the chat about the debate. So please
thank you so much for that.
that. That'll be very important.
Yeah, thank you so much. Let's zip through these. We have the great DF, Lady DF, financially gifting $9. And thank you so much for that. Writing here, thanks. And thank you, dear lady. Let's get a round of applause going, ladies and gentlemen, for the great Mrs. Jess Horst coming in again today and writing fantastic stream with $75 undergirding that. Thank you. Yeah, thank you so very much, dear lady. And we have here, and we have actually on Sunday, folks, if you're with us, we'll have a wonderful picture of her family. And you all will see. Can't wait to show that and share that with the community. A wonderful family. Fantastic stream, she writes. Thank you. We have over here on Entropy as well, the Last Red Squirrels. It's a lovely name, but hopefully we'll never come to the last red squirrels. There'll be plenty for all time. And financially gifting £25. Thank you so very much for that. And writing here, I've just finished reading your new book, Crucible. Congratulations, Jason. It was absolutely fantastic. Great guest. Well, thank you so very much for all of those compliments there and for reading Crucible. Please leave a review so that when we get all of these patriotic and nationalistic folks heading over to have a look and on Amazon to find out whether or not, ask that question, should I read this or not? Is it worthwhile reading? We already have some magnificent, in fact, Mr. George wrote a glorious review that is going to, and remember, folks, what's important about the review is that you are talking to all of those MAGA conservative types of folks, and you're convincing them, hey, this is the kind of thing that you're going to like, because it is the kind of thing that they're going to like, and we need them to come on over. So everybody that has written over there, and you all have done a fabulous job. I didn't see a single person dropping the ball. Just so many fantastic reviews doing exactly that, speaking to our brothers and sisters, the Vagues out there who need to come over as soon as possible. We have over on Cash App, the great Zero Talon financially gifting $5. Thank you so very much for that, brother. And writing here with it for folk tithing for White Wellbeing. Amen.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you so very much. And the great hero Slots, just every day. It's like Slots covers another mountain range, this guy. $9. Thank you so very much for your financial gift to White Wellbeing and all that you do.
I think that's how many children Mrs. Jess Horst has.
It is. What a synchronicity there. Very synchronistic. DB Cooper, the great DB Cooper, financially gifting $3. And thank you so very much for that, dear brother. And we have here $5 from, I don't remember your name in the chat. I don't think it's different than this. I'll just say that your name is Randall, $5. And is everyone doing their part, he writes, for white well-being. I hope so. I think so. Right now, the two biggest things that you can do, the easiest things that you can do, are retweet the video with that I made and tweeted out just a little while ago, and Mr. George just shared in the live stream. Retweet that as is, and then maybe a little later, maybe tomorrow or so, retweet it with some ats of your own, different conservative content creators and the like. So thank you so very much for that financial gift, and we'll refresh this, make sure we are okay and didn't miss anybody. Looks like we are okay. I'm going to swivel around here really quickly, and Mr. George and I are going to take a quick look at these questions. We are 5 minutes after the bottom of the hour. At the very top, we have the great Slots, and he's asking, what is your take, or what are your takes on saying, quote, race doesn't have to exist to be anti-white, close quote, to deracinated vagues saying or suggesting that race doesn't exist. Well, when they say, I'll just say quickly, and I'll pass it over to Mr. George if he has a thought on this. Absolutely, you can say that, brother. That's a good construction. When they say that race doesn't exist, of course, it's an anti-white slur. It's a meme pathogen. It's only used to deny us well-being. They never say this relative to other races. They never hear a non-white group X, for example, saying they want to do something good for the children of their group, or to celebrate their culture, and then respond to them. Well, why are you doing that? Race doesn't exist. So pointing out that, first and foremost, that this is a meme pathogen, that they would never use this on another race except for the white race, and that is a demonstration of how anti-white they are. You can then say, well, fine, if it's race is just a construct, then we have constructed something we call the white race. We believe ourselves to be members of that, and therefore anything that you would do that would harm that group is indeed anti-white. And so, yeah, I like your construction there, Slots. Jared, did you have any thoughts on that?
That's the main thing. What Jason said is what is going to apply in probably 90% of situations. Just like Tim was talking about today, you want to make it so that you're pointing out that they're really doing it to be anti-white and deny you anything. If you are in the 10% talking to someone, really trying to have a more esoteric philosophical conversation, refer to the About page on the afterparty.tv, or some of the things I have on my site. Basically, it makes life meaningless. Say, okay, so if you're a heterosexual man and you're married to a woman, I can change out your wife for another woman because she's just another woman. Or maybe I could put a man in bed next to you because women and men. Show the person that breaking down distinctions, even if they have a noble intent, is actually itself anti-life. We live in a world of particulars, and that's actually what makes life beautiful, rich, meaningful, and all the rest. We actually are pro true diversity. If we could one day maybe take that word back, we have some bigger fish to fry right now. But yeah, what Jason said applies in 90% of the cases. What I said applies in the 10% of the time. You actually do have an honest person trying to have a heady, philosophical, esoteric conversation.
That's a great point you make, Jared. Thank you. Let's see. Next we have... where is this? Mestizo saying, big hello to Tap and guest. Did anyone in the audience get a chance to see Mark Collett's debate with Ghazi yesterday? Absolute chaos, he writes. I was doing more than just watching. I was moderating. It was absolute chaos, and you can find it over on Mark's BitChute. And I think I will talk a little bit about that debate and what it means, ramifications, and what you should have seen, and your big takeaways from that sort of a conversation, because there's quite a little bit to learn. People were writing me and asking, how did you stay cool? Or why did you stay cool? Or why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? So it'll be, I think, useful to address those questions and some of those, what should be big takeaways from that argument, from that interaction, from that circus. Yonash says, would you consider, after translation of your books into our people's languages is finished, also translating them into non-white languages as well? Japanese, Korean, Chinese, Hindi, etc. Certainly, yeah. Everyone, irrespective of their characteristics, any immutable characteristics, is permitted to participate in white well-being. And in fact, everyone of any sense whatsoever, and good morals, good background, are going to support white well-being. There is one great force in this world right now, one overriding great force, and it is anti-whiteism. It has many subsets within side or underneath of that umbrella. But if people they want the West to persevere, they want it to continue, they want the benefits of that law and order and civilization and stability, not just in the Western countries, but indeed all of these other countries around the world they were lines on the map that were drawn by white men, and they are kept in this general stability or whatever they are by Western economy and commerce and military power. And the moment that were to disintegrate to whatever point necessary, you would have absolute sanguinary warfare on every continent. People would be returning to different forms of governance, and a great multitude would die, not just by the bullet or the sword or the spear or whatever it might be, but by the starvation and everything else that would ensue. So there are a lot of people that could and should be supporting and would be welcome to support a service to white well-being. And Mestizo back again, breaking. I don't know who that is, so I'll have to check into this person being attacked. Jonas says, thank you very much for getting Go Free to me. Oh, you're most welcome. Definitely going to have to read it a few more times to really get into it. There's so much new vocabulary. Some translates relatively well, some not. Well, remember, brother, and thank you for mentioning that, in the next iteration, I'm going to have a segment where I speak to, if in your particular language, your native tongue, wherever that might be, if there is a phrase or a word that translates directly and it works, it has the same meaning and the same denotative and connotative meaning to the word or phrase, then please just use the translation, use your word from your language. If, however, there is not a nice translation, then go ahead and just use the English word and then define the concept in your language for your audience, and then let it take root that way. I guarantee you, everyone who is a member of the West will be able to adopt new concepts with new definitions with relative ease. We've done it plenty throughout our history. And that looks like it's just about it, Mr. George. Any thoughts on the conversation we had with Tim today? And I guess anything lingering on what I just had to say here. And very quickly, folks, I will say this. Please, whatever your faith may be, remember, we absolutely need, we totally dislike President Donald Trump, but we absolutely need Trumpet to remain in office for another 4 years. And because he will not do what Biden and Kamala Harris will do. So whatever your faith may be, please give a prayer for this man, his wife, their family, a prayer for the surgeons, doctors, infectious disease doctors, and the like, who are going to be looking after him. Please give a prayer to your Almighty. And if you have no faith, then maybe just send some positive thoughts that direction. The power of faith has been tested many times, and it has demonstrated to be in studies to be as strong, if not stronger, than the placebo effect. So you will be doing something by making a prayer for the old T-Rex as he enters the hospital at Walter Reed. Mr. George.
I don't have anything particular to say about Tim's speech today. As I mentioned in the beginning, if you didn't catch this, he's been on twice before, his own show back in January and an appearance with Oliver of Semiagog back in March. You can find those cataloged on the afterparty.tv, of course, the shared media site that Jason and I have. It hosts a lot of community videos as well. And speaking of that subject, Chuck Martell's Garage Party follows at the top of the hour, 7 p.m. Eastern. Jason puts together mostly music, some poetry, and videos as well from the community. It's just kind of a fun, relaxed hangout on Friday evenings. My own site is thegreatorder.com. That's a catalog of all kinds of things that I do, video and otherwise, ways to support, ways to contact, a lot of good cultural projects coming down the pike that I will tell you more about when they launch. Anyway, we thank you for tuning in today. And Jason, you can do the honors of taking us out. Until next time, everyone, my best.
Yes, well, actually, very quickly, Mr. George, if you would like, drop another little tidbit about what you have coming up music-wise. You gave a little hint.
My approach is I'm going to be releasing a song at a time, not an album. Although I did write an album's worth of material, at least partially, earlier in the summer. I've been working to make sure that I have something that's noteworthy, I think, at least, to put out as a first release. And the first one will definitely be a catchy kind of a song. I have a lot of different musical interests, so there's no way I'm going to wedge it all into one song. But it does hit some important elements that are kind of the fundamentals of my sound and approach. But there will definitely be some offshoots to that as well. But yeah, it'll be a catchy verse, chorus, verse kind of song to begin us with, and mostly me. I just hired a drummer to do some drums on, and that's it. Everything else is me writing it, and singing it, producing it, and playing the instruments. And we're getting close. I have to get it mastered as well, but we're getting close over the next week or two, and there'll be some new visuals to go along as well. So kind of a new era for me. It's very exciting. It's music's a huge part of my life, and to this point, it hasn't played any part in my Great Order thing. It just wasn't time for it, and now it is a time for that. So as I said, we'll talk more about that, Jason, I'm sure, when it is actually happening. But that's a little teaser.
Yes, well, I am extremely excited about this. Been waiting a long time. Very, very excited. We will throw a big celebration. I can't wait to hear it. Music from Mr. George. It's going to be fantastic, ladies and gentlemen. Well, it's been a great tap, and having Tim in is always the case. We've had so many wonderful people in the chat. And it's not like on Sundays when I get to say hello to everybody. So a big hello to everybody generally. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for participating with your comments. And a big thank you to those who were just wallflowers and just watched, especially if you're new. Don't be afraid to comment, but you can just hang back and do anything other than just listen. We're fine with that as well. Let me spotlight a few people who I did see, as is the custom of TAP. I did see DG was with us today. A big spotlight and salute to you. So was Pants Monster. Hello to you. So Polmos was also with us. Spotlight to you and salute to you. And R. Pow was with us. A spotlight and salute to you as well. I want to give a big thank you to Mr. George, of course, everything he does to make these TAP episodes edifying, interesting, educational, and entertaining. So thank you so very much, dear brother. A big thank you to HB 2014 for all he's always doing for us, and Raymond Van Buskirk moderating today. And did we have any other moderators, or was that it today? I didn't see any others. That could be me if I missed anybody. If I missed anybody,
Raymond. I know HB was in the chat. He has a wrench, but yeah. But
thank you to any of the other mods.
On D-Live as well, so doing double duty.
Yes, yeah, precisely. Thank you for that as well.
I was watching the chat. If you said that already, my apologies.
No, that's good. Yeah, that wraps us up for today, folks. Don't go anywhere. It's going to be just about 11 and a half minutes, and Garage Party is going to get started. We're going to listen to some music. If you haven't been there before, just come and hang out. Listen to the tunes. We have poetry sometimes. We have Mr. George and videos that he makes for Red Ice on there as well at times. And we always have a hell of a lot of fun. What's that?
And soon music. We'll have to use one of these upcoming.
Absolutely.
One of these upcoming Chuck Martells will have the debut Great Order band song.
Absolutely. And it'll become a regular tune that we play at the maybe the beginning and the end of Garage Parties. This is the coming in. This is the going out. But thank you all so much for being here. And we will step on over to the garage. We're going to throw the doors open, both bays, ladies and gentlemen. So make sure you show up, and we'll see you over there real soon. Bye-bye.